I was going to ask you about, how the college football regular season has been impacted this year because of the new playoff system. How would you sum that up?
Ooh, it's a great. I was really concerned about it, Dan. Like I wouldn't have probably said that publicly, um, but I was concerned that the one thing that we really had in our bag as college football fans and as people that cover the sport was the do or die nature of the sport. And that concerned me that if we got rid of that, would the reaction be as strong? And a lot of what makes our sport unique is that we have that debate about who should be, who is, who could be if given the opportunity. If the playing field was level, this team could do whatever. Like that debate has raged on for 100 plus years. Now we have slowly but surely moved away from the debate to playoff formats that are more digestible for fans that don't live it every day. But I was concerned, and I don't know if we know just yet what the long-term impact will be, because if we start seeing Ohio State, Oregon 3 times a year, will that matchup that they play in October mean as much? That I'm genuinely curious about. So I don't know if we'll know the impact yet, but I still get the same reaction from fans every Monday if their team lost. Even though they know, hey, we lost, and at the end of the day, like we're still in the playoff mix, but Texas was freaking out when they lost the way they lost to Georgia. And Georgia was freaking out with the way they lost to Bama. And I'm sure Ohio State fans were freaking out with how things finished at the end at Oregon. And I'm sure Penn State feels like their life is over after last week. So the reaction is still as strong as ever, even though you're afforded opportunities to screw up and still have a chance.
Feels like when people see the brackets and they see BYU in the quarterfinals, that's when you're going to have some people upset. They're like, wait a minute. You got these first round matchups and then BYU is right there.
Yeah.
Um,
And they're going to say, here's the other thing that's funny is, and I think this will be funny because people are going to look at it and say, hang on a second. So in this conference that we just had to navigate, we had to beat Texas, Georgia, at Ole Miss, Florida at home, neutral site against Arkansas. And our reward is the same as the team that did not play a single team in the top 25. And they have beaten a bunch of teams that that are 8-4, 7-5. It just, I think that's where people are going to be like, hang on a second, why is the reward for winning the Big Ten the same as winning for the Big 12? And I think that's where we could find some chaos in the future.
Yeah, that's what I wonder, the tweaks that are going to be made, because we're never satisfied. We're going to tweak it. We're eventually going to probably have 24 teams, not 12. We're eventually going to go to a pro system. I mean, this is all headed towards, it feels like a conclusion that we've been waiting for. Do you feel that way, that this is where the sport's headed? Whether you want to or not, but yeah, it feels like that's where we're going.
I think we're heading to further expansion. To what number we get to, I think 16 is most likely, because people are going to look at it and say, all right, well, I want a home game in the playoffs. And now I like having a bye week. That's great. But our fans want a home game in the playoffs. And while the conference championship games have been really valuable for a really long time, do the commissioners and the decision makers eventually determine, all right, is the conference championship game as impactful as it once was under the previous format? Or are we better suited maybe getting rid of the conference championship game in favor of more home playoff game environments? And that's what I think will be the conversation that's had down the road. I think we will, in the near term, expand to 14 so that the Big Ten and the SEC are given that first round bye and everybody else has to play a first round game. Because right now for the Big 12 champ to get the same thing as the SEC champ is ridiculous. So I think at some point that's where we'll get to, but I'm not sure they'll be done at 14. I would imagine 16 is the most likely. 24 feels bloated. I don't think we'll get there, but I could certainly see 16 at some point in the future.